right, so we are back, and after all of the things that happened this weekend, Misfits number 7, KSI in the main event, dropping the people's elbow on Joe Blow Fournier's chin and making him some nothing because he was knocked out cold. After the main event, regardless of what the decision will be, no contest, DQ, hey, I don't care, to be honest with you. We got to see a fight that I think a lot of people really want to take a look at, and that was the face-off between KSI and Tommy Fury. This fight, while again on paper doesn't look like Tommy should really have any trouble after beating Jake Paul, who is considered one of the best in our scene, this may be closer than you think, and it isn't just me saying it, it's the father of Tommy Fury himself. And sure, John could just be promoting the fight, but he sat down to do a video in what looks like the shadings of a hookah lounge or some smoke shop where he tells people about the good old days of the Fighting Furies, or how Tyson and Tommy came from me ball sack. That's where greatness comes from, John Fury's ball sack. Because this isn't Jake versus Tommy. This isn't Tommy versus Anthony Taylor. It's not Tommy versus anybody else. It's Tommy versus something he's never seen before. And styles make fights. What do I mean? The breakdown. Let's go. But before we get into that, guys, there's one spot that you need to go for all of your sports betting needs, and it's the sponsor for today's video. That's MyBookie. MyBookie.ag, guys, it's where I pick all of the fights that I am consistently losing money on because I'm terrible at it. But if you guys want to make money and you're better at picking fights than your boy, you go to MyBookie.ag. You type in code WADE when you sign up for up to $1,000 in deposit match bonuses, and this weekend is the big fight. Yes, we're going to be live on stream to watch that fight and to make our picks. You can do all that and more using code WADE when you sign up at MyBookie. And last thing from me, guys, please always gamble responsibly. Thank you to MyBookie for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back into the breakdown. So KSI Tommy Fury, why is this fight different? What is giving me a different kind of feel about how dangerous KSI can be to Tommy and how close this fight can actually be? Well, like I said a second ago, styles make fights. KSI is not a normal orthodox boxer. He's not in any way, shape, or form trained as a Marquess of Queensberry rules fundamentalist boxer, and that can be a bad thing, and that can be the reason Tommy may mow him over and make this fight a wash, but it also can be the very thing that keeps KSI not only competitive, but dangerous. And it's not just me saying this. Also, the father of the man KSI will be fighting, because you know anything about the Furies, yes, they sell fights, but they also always have their eyes on the competition. Let's take a look at this.
Listen, no fight's the same, and styles make fights, you know, and he looked awkward, you know, and he was doing some crazy stuff in there, you know, and these men can make a pro look bad. Though these kind of people, in my opinion, and years of experience, if you get somebody with that kind of style that's all over the place, they can make good pros look bad, so you don't know what they can bring.
This right here is the main factor in this fight. It is the what-if factor, right? The reason this fight is compelling to, I think, anyone, outside of the fact that KSI is saying, I want to do something that Jake didn't. Tommy is going to get a massive payday to beat up a YouTuber. This what-if is the big reason why this fight makes sense to do, because while we had the what if with Jake, right? If he lands the big shot, if he lands the big right hand, if he lands the left hook, whatever, how does Tommy take it? We had that answer in about 35 seconds of their fight. One of the first shots Jake lands is a big overhand right that didn't hurt Tommy in the slightest, and he walked right through it. But this is a little bit different because Jake, like I said, if there was a way to describe how Jake Paul boxes, it is very fundamental, not necessarily the most talented guy right now. And again, there's always things to improve, and he's a very young boxer comparatively to what Tommy has gone through and other pro boxers, but he's learned the fundamentals of boxing. His jab, his right hand, his defense, again, while not the best, does stem from a fundamental basic understanding of the sport. KSI is not that. His fundamentals as far as boxing is concerned aren't necessarily what you'd look for from a brand new boxer. He doesn't throw jabs in a way that is taught in many gyms. He doesn't throw right hands or stand or use the same angle of shots that most people would teach. And this is what makes him dangerous. I'm going to make a comparison here, and obviously the talent level is not the same, so I don't want to hear the comment section going,
"Oh, Wade, how could you compare KSI to this individual and Tommy to this individual? They are nowhere near the same talent level. This is a bullshit comparison."
Shut up. I just want to put this out there because of the relative comparison I can make. Floyd Mayweather rarely talks about anyone giving him problems as an opponent in boxing. He will say people are good, like Manny Pacquiao, and even Jake Paul's head boxing coach now, Shane Mosley, gave him some issues. You don't hear him say names like Oscar De La Hoya, Manny, Ricky Hatton. You hear the name Emmanuel Augustus. And for those that don't know, Emmanuel Augustus was never a world championship level pro boxer, but what he was a difficult matchup for almost everyone. Losing a lot of fights, but losing in a lot of decisions and sometimes split decisions. He employed a style of boxing called the Drunken Master. This style was difficult to adjust to. The angles of shots were not usually where they should be. He was jumping around, cross-stepping, switching his footwork, dipping in and out of range, almost moving like he was listening to some sort of song, or he was moving to a beat or some kind of rhythm that other boxers weren't tuned into. And it made him hard to hit. It made him hard to gauge. It made you hard to target where you were going to throw your shots because you didn't know where he was going to be. And maybe he didn't even know at certain points. And while Floyd was able to figure this puzzle out, it did take him some time. And he did beat Emmanuel. And I think he even stopped him in the fight. But my point in saying this is it took him a little more time maybe to get the rhythm, get the timing, get the ability to see what was coming from an unorthodox guy that maybe had Emmanuel fought like a regular boxer would not have been as successful for the time period he was successful in their fight. This brings me back to KSI and Tommy, not because they're anywhere near the same talent level. Emmanuel Augustus was a really good boxer on top of employing a odd style. And I do expect Tommy Fury to be able to figure out KSI's erratic and explosive movements that are a bit awkward in the way he throws punches. But what if Tommy doesn't figure that out, or at least not as quickly as he needs to before KSI lands a bomb? That is what makes KSI dangerous, because not trying to compare KSI and Jake, but they're just not the same fighter. And the style that Jake employed for the Tommy fight, which was very much one shot at a time, counter punching, and then trying to use his jab to counter Tommy's, I don't know that that's going to be the same way KSI fights. In fact, I don't think KSI will fight like that at all. I think KSI will be a lot more, we've seen, bladed, a lot more right hand heavy, which again, he's so quick that sometimes he just throws it and it lands. And I know, just like you guys should now, what KSI wants this fight for. Yes, it's to shit on Jake, of course, but it's also because something he saw in the Jake Paul and Tommy fight.
I truly believe I can knock him out. I truly believe I'll be able to get my timing on him and just sleep him. Bro, my power ain't like Jake. It's more. I'm devastating. You saw what I could do. An overhand and a 9-0 pro is wobbling.
So KSI does see that availability of the overhand right to land on Tommy's face, but it's his confidence that when he lands it, it'll be the difference maker that makes this, again, even a little more interesting. Again, let's go back to John Fury, and I'll explain a little more why after.
Does Tommy beat them? Yes, he does. Do they put up a good show? Yes, they can. And at the end of the day, let's just see. They're quite capable. They're quite capable of doing what they do, or they wouldn't be doing it, because confidence is the key. And they've got confidence.
This is what I was talking about. You heard the words from John Fury. He even gives a shout out to Deji there, which is pretty cool. But it's confidence. This is something I've talked about ad nauseum with KSI, because is he the most talented boxer? No. Is he the most gifted physically? I would say he's pretty gifted. He's got a natural propensity to be a high-level athlete, at least in whatever space influencers can do that. But his confidence allows him to fully believe in what he's doing, that it is the right thing. Because let's say you stick a normal boxer in Shoot Fighter's gym and you give them the same style they've given KSI, and you give them the same instruction and the same game plan. I don't think they accomplish the goal. I don't think they're as fluid in that style, and I don't think they win fights the way KSI does, because he's fully turned over his confidence to that team, to that style, believing that regardless of what happens, what he does best is knock people out and win. And that kind of confidence, much like Jake has in a lot of his fights, is a dangerous thing and can be a difference maker when you are stacked against guys that are probably more talented than you, have more time doing this. And again, as a professional boxer like Tommy is going to offer you the highest level you've seen with his jab, with his straight right hand, with his movement, with his feints, with his gas tank. And again, has the ability to try, at least at some point, to figure out what you're doing. So while KSI is at a disadvantage physically, what makes him dangerous is the confidence he has in his right hand. Because most guys, if that doesn't land off rip and he gets tagged with something as a counter, they'll go away from it. KSI will continue looking for that shot, and he'll do so out of unorthodox positions. Again, look at the Joe Fournier fight. The overhand right that he lands, yeah, it's set up with his jab, but it's not thrown like any other overhand you'll find in any high-level boxing match. He throws it like he's dunking on guys, and he didn't even land it with the full fist, and Joe started stumbling around like it was last call at one of his Miami nightclubs. And while I didn't necessarily like a lot of the shifting that KSI was doing from out of range and wasn't necessarily effective in getting him to a spot to land, there were a couple of instances where he was shifting angles and being able to use that to work his way into range and set up a multitude of different shots because of the angle switch and the stance switch. It's a lot like fucking in complete darkness because it's just hard to see what's coming. Yep. 30 years old. And that's what I do think KSI can and will do to remain dangerous as long as he can in this fight. And I think it's what makes this fight a little closer because the propensity of KSI to look for the knockout shot over and over and over, compiled onto the fact that his cardio seems to be at tip-top shape at all times, it will, at least at some points, offer him openings that maybe orthodox boxers wouldn't get versus a guy like Tommy who understands how to defend himself in normal situations, but does give himself up to be hit when he does elongate his jab or close range too quickly. KSI will be there to throw that counter punch. And again, the one thing that Jake struggled with Tommy was Tommy's volume forward. Will KSI's confidence to stand with Tommy in the middle and throw volume back, will that make Tommy shy away from his jab and maybe slow down a little bit of that volume forward so KSI can then press forward and put Tommy on the back foot? We do have to bring up the fact that Tommy did, at least at some points, struggle with a wilder guy, and I'm not talking Deontay, Jordan Grant. Early in Tommy's career, we go back to this fight over and over and over, but he did have some success being a little bit more wild and just frustrating Tommy and closing distance and throwing big looping shots, and it was a fight where Tommy didn't look as good as he's looked in other fights. And this is why I say styles make fights. There are certain fighters that even Tyson Fury, Tommy's brother, will say are boogeymen for specific fighters. No matter how good you are, no matter how many people you put down or how great you look on most occasions, that one individual will always have your number, or at least make you fight in a way you haven't. He'll make you struggle in a way you haven't, and he may creep up on you and make the fight harder than you thought it would be. Is KSI that boogeyman for Tommy Fury? I don't have those answers, but I do know he has the potential to be. Just like he does for anybody else, he's awkward. He's different. He's not orthodox, and you can't bring in anyone that looks just like him to train like him, to train for him. The first time Tommy Fury will see exactly what KSI does is in that ring on fight night. There is no replicating it at camp, and once he sees it, the question will be, how dangerous is KSI to Tommy Fury? A lot of questions, but hopefully this thing gets signed, and I guess we'll find out.